Thank you. Good morning. In my view, the ceasefire is a welcome development. At least we give time for a chance for peace to enable the government, and for once the insurgents have agreed to a ceasefire, as opposed to their earlier positions of no engagement at all. So at this time, the government can then negotiate with them and get actually what they actually need. For one thing, peace is something we cannot compromise, and every genuine effort at peace should be exploited. That's my view. I think it's a welcome development and gives prospects that should be exploited.
Given the antecedents of insurgent groups like this in other parts of the country, and of course ceasefires like this which have been brokered, and the latest incident which happened, of course, just shortly after that ceasefire was declared, do we have any reason to doubt the sincerity of this ceasefire?
Well, I think time will tell with regards to that. It's one thing that the control of the armed forces is different from that of the insurgents. On the ground that if you give instruction to the armed forces, the communication is faster. But on the side of the insurgents, they have different cells. And the way they communicate may not be as effective as that of the military. So I want to believe that as the day go by, various commanders, if they actually are genuine and committed to this peace process, if they actually want it, the genuine commanders among these will be communicated, and then that will get to the expectations may be actualized. Now, but one thing I'm also cautious is, with regards to the ceasefire, is the fact that we don't know what really is the motive of the insurgents. One is, are they weary of fighting? Are they tired in view of the sustained bombardment in the past 1 month? Are they running out of weapons since they've been cut off from various axes and want to go and rearm and come back and engage? Nobody knows. These are what time will tell. But I want to believe that if both parties are genuinely committed to it, as also member nation within because I think we are on the step to having a solution to this crisis.
But the fact is, a ceasefire agreement is but just a critical step on the stage towards on the stages towards resolving the larger questions of insurgency and rebuilding Borno State. What, in your opinion, should guide the next steps? Yes, you have outlined some of the matters that we ought to be wary of, namely how genuine these elements or some of the commanders in Boko Haram. But what, in your opinion, should be the next steps?
One is, as the ceasefire, the agreements are tidied up and both parties keep to implementing the agreed terms, then you can see a kind of confidence building. I want to assume that part of the ceasefire will be withdrawal of the fighters from areas they occupy in Nigeria. To my view, I tend to see them as not necessarily all Nigerians, and there is need for them to leave areas they occupy in. So if that is part of the agreement, fine. As it's been implemented, they withdraw. Is that left for the Nigerian side to take advantage of that and tidy all loopholes? Be the various security agencies, the military, of course, you know that sometime last year the Division 7 Division was established, to enhance capability of the military in containing the insurgency. Now, if there are other areas that have not been actually tidied up, these are some of the things that should be done on the Nigerian side now as the insurgents pull out. Then, if you look at the various security, like I tend to look at Nigerian police establishment being built prior to this insurgency for peacetime policing. Now, in view of the development, I think it's time for us to have a rethink on the way you don't just put a 3 and few people there. Let us look at our various police establishment and restructure them to foresee or anticipate and be able to contain some of these things. Then beside that, the issue of building confidence within the community is also very, very important. Now, various communities have been devastated. Schools have been stopped. The safe school initiative should be intensified by the government. So people, these are some of the measures that will be taken care of, that will be put in place to, try to contain some of these things. And again, the government should also ensure that the families of those who have been killed in this insurgency, that is victims of terror, are being rehabilitated adequately, both on the part of the insurgents and also on the part of the non-insurgents. Likewise, the military officers. So these are some of the ideas I feel the government can put in place to take advantage of the ceasefire if it's when the gains on that situation are being actualized.
Okereke, we'll still stay with you from our Lagos Network Center, but we'll quickly join Colonel Paul Ogbebo, retired in our Benin studios. And Colonel Ogbebo, thank you for joining us. I'll quickly take you on this. We've heard or seen of ceasefires agreed on and broken by insurgent groups in different parts of the world. But again, the difference between insurgents in other parts of the world and what we're having in northeastern part of Nigeria is that those have clear defined objectives, but we are yet to define the objectives of the Boko Haram sect. So in a ceasefire like what we've heard, what should be the takeaways? Of course, we know that the release of the Chibok girls should be uppermost, but what should be the takeaway from both sides? Are you convinced by this ceasefire?
Thank you very much. I'm very convinced because of what has been happening. You can see that when the soldiers were given go ahead to do their job, they know they will be pounding the insurgents. I will not call them only insurgents. I will call them terrorists and soldiers of invasion. And they are not well trained. I'm sure few things are happening in their camp. This is why they have to calm down now and they want to negotiate. It's a very welcome development. I think the Nigerian government should follow up very well. So I believe that they are sincere, and we are also very sincere, and we should take advantage of the situation.
Well, Colonel Ogbebo, you are a veteran of the Nigerian Civil War. A ceasefire has been announced. What, in your opinion, are the operational consequences of this ceasefire, considering that the other side is a ragtag force?
See, we have advantage because we own the land. There's a state government, there's a local government there, and there are the traditional rulers. All these who should be involved to watch out and then follow up. We should use them, okay, to monitor the ceasefire. And then the soldiers should remain in place and should use this opportunity to now really hold the ground properly. And then why there should be continuous consultation and discussion. And as I said in one of my papers, I said we should use the opportunity of the UNO and other foreign countries to monitor them and to overwhelm them and to make sure that this question of Boko Haram thing is brought to an end finally and successfully.
Okay, there are areas still under, the influence of the Boko Haram sect in some parts of the northeast. Within this period of ceasefire, what should happen?
I've already said so. I said this is the time to get the state government, local government, and the traditional rulers involved because they are nearest to the ground. Okay, we have limited troops, but the state government, we still have organized echelons of government on the ground, and we use them now to monitor the Boko Haram sects, and also on continuous dialogue, and then to follow up a continuous dialogue so that we really know what they want and then follow up with that one.
Quickly ask you, you said earlier on that you're convinced about this ceasefire. What exactly do we know? We know that, of course, federal government have their own representatives, the Chadian government, of course. How much do we know? Who are the representatives of the Boko Haram sect? How much do we know?
We don't know much of them, but whoever the federal government is discussing with, the federal government knows, okay? What I'm trying to say is that they belong to a place, either outside Nigeria or within Nigeria. This is where we need the locals. We should use the locals as much as possible to now get to know what they know or what they want and to know them. So do what I'm saying.
Colonel Ogbebo, assuming you were part of the delegation to the negotiations, what would be your bargaining chip?
The bargaining chip is, first of all, know what they want and then try to explain to them, try to educate them. We must educate them. And then, as much as possible, we cannot treat them differently from the society. So, what do they, can it be accommodated within the society? And then, if they cannot be accommodated, we should educate them. Look at what happened in Niger Delta. Okay, what we did is that after knowing what they want, and we started educating them, training them. That is the most important thing, to know that what you want, you can get it under peace. And without peace, you will not be able to get it. So it is education. Education, we should educating the people that we should emphasize now.
There's usually the phrase "dogs of war." Certain persons profit from war and conflict. It's not unlikely, therefore, that there may be some persons who do not wish an end to this kind of insurgency that we've had. What would be your reaction to such dogs of war?
You see, if they are still having the supremacy, to settle, it's because they have lost their supremacy. This is why they have agreed now to settlement. And we should take advantage of that one. This is a country, and there's no inch of this country that we should cede to any person or some foreigners or people who call themselves terrorists should occupy. Okay, we cannot afford that one. So this is why holding the ground is very important. And I will still emphasize that we should use the advantage of the state government that is on the ground, the local government that is on the ground, and the traditional rulers to hold the ground, assist the soldiers to hold the ground properly. I think if they know that we are holding the ground and we are superior, they know that we are superior. What they have been doing was just hitting and running. Okay, but if they know that we know their tactics, we are prepared to meet their need to some extent within our resources, I think they will give up. And whoever is their master, they will damn him and then go for peace.
Colonel Paul Ogbebo, thank you. We'll still return to you, but let's go back to Lagos, where we have Dr. Emeka Okereke. Dr. Emeka, in one of the reports I read, someone who goes by the name Danlade Ahmadu, who claims to be the spokesman of the Boko Haram sect, is reported to have claimed that some of their activities that have been identified with the Boko Haram, insinuating, of course, other groups, committing some other atrocities. Now, how do we make this ceasefire binding to all parties so that it's not violated as witnessed just a few days ago?
Well, the issue of violation of ceasefire is not what you can just stay now and decide on how. One thing is certain: the various parties, their commitment to keep to the agreement is very fundamental. Now, if a group enter the agreement because it is experiencing some shortcomings, when he goes, just like what happens in Uganda and the Lord's Resistance Army, when the LRA is running out of ammunition, they seek for ceasefire. The moment the feel they've got enough, they tend to violate it. Likewise, on the part of a responsible government, if you enter into agreement on certain tenets, it's also expected you keep to it. So we are going to count more on the commitment of the parties to successful implementation of the ceasefire. So it's not just a matter of say what and what do we need to do. It's just the parties to the ceasefire telling themselves this is time for let's explore this chance and let's follow it objectively. That's all.
Dr. Okereke, I think also that part of the question to pose at this stage has to do with how the parties can, for instance, deal with rogue elements. Of course, rogue elements mean many persons who do not, or parties who do not belong to either the federal government, the Nigerian government, or to Boko Haram themselves, and therefore might cause irritations to either party in proceeding with the deeper issues of negotiations. How should the parties respond therefore, to the activities of rogue elements?
Okay. I think that will be more or less internal scrutiny. For the government, beside the agreement with Boko Haram, there may be other armed groups that have been taking advantage of the insecurity of the past to create mayhem. Is for normal security measures to be in place. The policing aspect should be in place. The moment Boko Haram since they are discussing with the leaders, it's assumed that the leaders will give directives to their commanders. And when it's assumed that when the commanders comply with it, other fallouts, even the Boko Haram element, will tell that these are not our members. They will announce it. So the government will now know how to deal with such measures. For sure, that you have a ceasefire does not mean that soldiers should withdraw from the position they occupy. I don't think it means that. And as soldiers, they will tell you, if they are fired, they will fire back. So one thing is certain. The moment Boko Haram tells us we've withdrawn or we've stopped all hostility, then if it's armed robbers that engage society or security agencies, then we know that, yes, you know who you are dealing with, that these are not parties. But when we have a problem that if there are factions within the Boko Haram, and some groups are pro-peace, some are pro-status quo, then there's a problem. It means that the tenets of agreement will have some shaky, will be somehow shaky, in the sense that if the pro-peace group withdraws and the ones that want the status quo to remain continue, then we have to reappraise the rules of engagement.
Okay, Dr. Emeka Okereke speaking to us from the Lagos Network. To thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria, and thank you for coming.
Take a break.
Okay, this is Good Morning Nigeria, which is coming to you live.
It's your mouth that gives you your best smile, that lets you bite into the best food, hot or cold. That's why your mouth deserves Oral-B Pro Health All-Round Protection. It protects you against bacteria, plaque, and gum problems that could lead to tooth loss. It strengthens your teeth and gives you all-round protection. That's why your mouth deserves Oral-B Pro Health All-Round Protection. And now available in family size.
Just a quarter cup of jig in the water will get school uniforms whiter, and it is the tough stain fighter that will get your whites much brighter. Just Jiggins! Pot puree and lemon. Just Jiggins! Hey, you better go get it! Now available in lemon and pot puree fragrances, the newest and freshest way to jig it.
Today, where were you?
I need a dryer way.
You need a smarter way. Always keeps you 3 times drier.
One always instead of 3 other pads, and I'm drier. I'm smarter today.
3 times drier for more value.
I bet you can touch your nose with your thumb.
Nose?
It's the same with your toilet. There are many places in your toilet that detergents cannot clean. That is why the new Harpic 5 times complete gives you 5 times better cleaning than detergent from the rim all the way to the U-bend, making your toilet completely clean. With Harpic 5 times complete, you will definitely reach all the hard to clean places in your toilet.
Harpic Power Plus. Buy now for only 350 naira.
All right, welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And very shortly, we'll be going over to our Lagos Network Center. But let's return to Benin Network Center, where we have Dr. Paul Ogbebo still with us. Dr. Ogbebo, I'd just like to quickly, Colonel Ogbebo, I'd like to quickly put the question Kingsley put across to Dr. Okereke earlier on. And it's about dealing with elements of rogue elements within, of course, the sect. Now, I did say that one of the claimed spokesperson of the Boko Haram sect by name Danladi Ahmadu said that some of the attacks were not actually carried out by his men. So how do we begin to deal with rogue activities of rogue elements within this party?
Thank you very much. You don't take a drug and expect it to start working and kill the ailment immediately. We have the important thing is to agree to ceasefire. We should follow that one up. We should concentrate on that one. The splinter group that might still be operating, the society, the community will take care of them, and then when they are running out of ammunition or other things, they will fizzle out. All they want now is to continue to get resources to sustain themselves as individuals or little splinters. We should not bother about them too much. We should bother about how do we sustain the ceasefire. I think that should be our main objective.
Okay, on that note, I would like to thank Colonel Ogbebo, your retired military officer, who has been with us from the Benin Network Center. Thank you for being on Good Morning Nigeria. Okay, we're going over now to the Lagos Network Center, where we have another guest. Incidentally, he's also a retired colonel, Colonel Olamajo. He will be joining us, as I said, from our Lagos Network Center. And if you can hear me, Colonel Olamajo, let's begin with you by putting these issues in context. I know the part of your tour of duty included some time in Liberia, where there were hostilities and ceasefire agreements broken repeatedly. We were also in Lebanon. What do you see? What's, in your opinion, are you seeing unfolding with respect to the ceasefire agreement reached between the federal government and Boko Haram?
Good morning, Nigeria, and thank you, Kingsley, and the NTA crew for inviting me to this program. Before I answer that question, because I've listened to my colleagues across the country and other people speaking, I would like to crave your indulgence to put some fundamentals in place. You've asked repeatedly, what does this mean? What is a ceasefire? And what should we expect? I want to start by saying that no group is likely to go into a ceasefire if they're in charge of the situation. That is, if they're having the upper hand. And at this point, I'd like to say, before I now answer your question in detail, that this country needs to salute the security agencies, specifically the agency that has primary responsibility for internal security, namely the Department of State Services. What has happened is this, in my perception. Boko Haram has been boxed into a corner. Somehow, they have been stopped from carrying out the rash of bombings in police stations, in military barracks, and all that. They have been fought to a standstill by the Department of State Services on that score. In the battlefield, our soldiers have not only forced them to a standstill, they are reversing their successes. I said on another program in a different station, just about 3 weeks ago, that Boko Haram is in very big trouble. Otherwise, I mean, they won't want to negotiate. They would like to keep the advantage on. Having said that, I'd like to now attempt to answer your question specifically. What do we expect? This is a very difficult question to answer for the following reasons. The federal government is negotiating with people who I would describe as lunatics. It is a pity that Boko Haram is being associated with Islam. Let me say this again. Boko Haram is not Islamic. So when you are dealing with a group that is made up of misguided people, people who are sick, that is, have mental problems, and then common criminals, you have a big challenge because they have no code of conduct, they have no integrity to protect, they can enter into an agreement and break it, and nobody will be surprised. But here you have a federal government of an important nation entering into an agreement with people who can do anything. You raise the issue of rogue elements. I think that is a big problem that the security agencies must begin to look at now. Because I believe you have political Boko Haram, you have criminal Boko Haram, you have people using Islam to propagate crime and pretending to be Boko Haram. Of course, there will be rogue elements. It is tragic but true. But there are people who are benefiting from the activities of Boko Haram. They don't want the crisis to be over. There are politicians who want the thing to go on and for elections to become impossible. There are people that today, if Boko Haram is defeated, they are like fish out of water. That is the only crisis for which they are benefiting. Plus, when it comes to Boko Haram proper, as one of the earlier guests said, look, the chain of command is very fluid. It's not like the military, where the chief of defense have said ceasefire and all the soldiers stop firing. No. I've not heard people talking about Ansaru. Ansaru is a terrorist group. It is not under Boko Haram. The criminals who have been blocking the roads in the northeast, they call them konta. Konta means when they grab you, they tell you, lie down, lie down. They are not under anybody's command. And so you are going to find that a lot of things will happen over which Boko Haram has no control. If you factor that into the fact that Boko Haram itself is unreliable, I think the president has a huge problem on his hands. Do not forget that maybe I am not up to date. I have not heard Boko Haram saying we have any peace agreement. So how can you hold them down to an agreement that they have not acknowledged publicly? So we are going to have criminals running around now, shooting people. The situation in Taraba that led to the shooting, which the police have put under control now, it has nothing to do with Boko Haram. In fact, the shooting on Friday, when the ceasefire was announced, I'm sorry, I do not believe it was Boko Haram. Because there are criminals running around in this country. And whether there is Boko Haram or not, they are going to continue to run around and cause mayhem. My only joy is this. From what I know, the security agencies are up to date, they're capable. Thank you.
Colonel Majoigbe, let's look at this perspective. You have described Boko Haram in so many words, lunatic elements, without a proper chain of command, and so on and so forth. But still, negotiations are almost inevitable, as the federal government, has begun under the auspices of President Idris Deby of Chad. I asked the question earlier to one of our guests, and I would like to pose the same question to you. Assuming you were a member of the federal government delegation, coming face to face, as it were, with persons whom you have described as lunatics, what would be your posture and what would be your bargaining chip?
Posture would be that of someone who is in difficulties but is quite prepared to eat the humble pie and negotiate. Do not forget that Boko Haram is holding 219 girls. And all they need to do is murder those girls or do something horrible to them. It will be very, very difficult for the government to recover from that kind of tragedy. I believe today that the federal government is in a position to wipe out Boko Haram by the use of force. But the federal government cannot do that. See what happened to the American and British guys who were held by the Islamic State. They simply beheaded them. So, to answer your question directly, my attitude will be from a position of strength, because I know that my armed forces can run over these guys. But I will not make that my number one position. my position will be, I have come to this negotiation from a position of strength. Know that we can get you if you choose to go ahead with your insurgency. But the number one demand I will make will be, please release the Chibok girls. For God's sake, if you want to fight, why are you going to capture female students? Come and fight the soldiers. Fight the policemen. Fight whoever. So my posture will be that of somebody coming from a position of strength, knowing that in the last couple of weeks, Boko Haram has been on the run. Shekau was killed. The guy who took over has been killed. They are beginning to defect. They are beginning to surrender. So I know I'm coming from a position of strength. But I'll be careful not to jeopardize the lives of these young women who have been held for 6 months now. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Colonel Majoyegbe, thank you for the perspectives you have given. Now, from the reports today, and of course from conversations since this ceasefire, was announced, there have been apprehensions, fears, doubts about the sincerity of the ceasefire on the part of Boko Haram sect, and your perspectives and why the Boko Haram sect agreed to the ceasefire in the first place lends credence to, some of the views that have been expressed that this might be a ploy by the sect. So how can government avoid this? How can government maximize this situation, and ensure that the ceasefire is binding?
Good. The first point I want to make is that if government is anxious about this, that shows that you have a lot of intelligent professionals in government, because you should be anxious when you are dealing with guys like this. As one of the other commentators said, for the armed forces it's so easy. The chief of staff says ceasefire, and every soldier, every naval officer, every airman stops firing. I do not believe that that is the same situation with Boko Haram. Plus, as I said, we have rogue elements on the side. We have people who are criminally minded, who are benefiting from the tragedy. So what should government do? One, tell its armed forces to behave like a professional armed forces. Namely, ceasefire, remain in position, replenish, do reinforcements, but carry out no hostile acts. So that if the negotiations break down, don't forget Boko Haram has supporters everywhere, people who squeal on government. That is the truth. Let them know that these guys are not only ready, but they are willing to continue the fight. So that if ever the ceasefire breaks down, then the armed forces and the federal government will not be held or will not be caught unawares. What else can they do? We have so many security agencies. And when it comes to internal security, the primary agency is the State Security Service, well, Department of State Services. And then, of course, you have the police and all the others. Let them do their normal duties. Do not forget that we've not had bombings and all that, simply because people are doing a hell of a job. And I think some of them really deserve to stand up and take a bow. They should continue their normal job. All these rascals going around shooting in Plateau State, going around causing confusion in Taraba State, I do not believe they are Boko Haram elements. So go after them, take them down if necessary. Let it be clear that the fact that there is a ceasefire will not make government to become soft on people who break the law. I think that is what government needs to do. Remain alert and tough on anybody who breaks the law, whilst ensuring that they take no action that can be interpreted to mean a breach of the ceasefire.
Majoyegbe, please, thank you for the perspectives, but please do remain with us there in Lagos. We'll return to you shortly after we take this quick short break.
Put a cup of jig in the water, we'll get school uniforms whiter, and it is the tough stain fighter that will get your whites much brighter. Just Chickens! Pot puree and lemon. Just Chickens! Hey, you better go get it! Now available in lemon and pot puree fragrances, the newest and freshest way to chickens.
I bet you can touch your nose with your thumb.
Nose?
It's the same with your toilet. There are many places in your toilet that detergents cannot clean. That is why the new Harpic 5 times complete gives you 5 times better cleaning than detergent from the rim all the way to the U-bend, making your toilet completely clean. With Harpic 5 times complete, you will definitely reach all the hard to clean places in your toilet.
Harpic Power Plus. Buy now for only 350 naira.
New Camay Beauty Soap. He's always in a hurry, but now no need to worry. I know my way to his heart. New Camay Soap with a perfume drop that lasts oh so long. And my skin feels so soft. I'm a Camay kind of woman, true African woman, so beautiful. You're the queen of my heart. I'm a Camay kind of woman, true African woman. Discover new body care collection from Camay.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria, coming to you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We have a guest with us at the Lagos Network Center, and we are discussing the ceasefire agreement between the federal government of Nigeria and Boko Haram. Colonel Olamajo Egbe, a retired military officer, he was in military intelligence and had some tours of duty outside the country. Colonel, I would like us to take a look at one perspective, which obviously you're very familiar with, and this has to do with psychological operations. And I'm taking it, I would like you to look at it from two perspectives. The first is this. There is almost the ideological viewpoint that do not negotiate with terror. Because if you give them an inch, they will take a yard. Here we are negotiating with Boko Haram, which has been branded a terrorist organization. Are there exceptional circumstances that can be used to justify these negotiations? That's one. The second point is, how should the government, or how should Nigerians in general, react to political elements who might want to take advantage of this to further pillory the government and distract it?
Good. This is my reaction. Government is indeed a very difficult position. You see, it's all right for me to sit in an air-conditioned studio and run my mouth about, don't discuss with terrorists. You know, they are criminals. You don't negotiate with criminals, because all my children are not involved. They are doing well. I drop one of them off at work. I do not think that anybody should accept that kind of line of thought. I can tell you, as a professional, and in the early 80s I trained in the United States. I went back to the same United States in 1992. And at the risk of being immodest, all the reports said this is a distinguished guy, this is an extraordinary chap. They negotiate. They use third parties. How did that sergeant get out of Afghanistan? They do all sorts of things. My position is, if you are in this kind of bind in which the federal government is in, you go ahead and negotiate. In any case, let me also make one point. The federal government has agreed to a ceasefire. It actually hasn't negotiated yet. Well, they've had discussions. They've said, both sides stop firing. Now let's negotiate. I do not believe that the federal government of Nigeria has a choice in this matter. As I said, if you say to the armed forces, wipe out Boko Haram today, anything that is living in the Northeast, by December, you won't find one person or antelope or monkey alive. We have the capacity to do that. But that is not what you want to do in your own country. You wipe everybody out, and then suddenly people will say, okay, this government He has another party. Oh no, we don't belong to the same religion. They want to kill everybody. Until those girls are released, the federal government has no choice but to negotiate. We are not under the United States of America or the United Kingdom or any other country. We do what we believe is in our own interest. What is in our interest? Negotiate and get the girls back. What was your second point?
I call it comment. I could reserve that, or you could reserve your comment. It has to do with responding to internal political pressure by political elements, who may wish to pillory the government, for taking the steps that it has taken on account of the insurgency.
One of the things that make me truly sad is that we have a shortage of patriots. First, I believe beyond all doubt that there are people supporting Boko Haram, some directly, some not directly. What do? They are threatened by Boko Haram, and then they pay money to Boko Haram to leave them alone. This is how Boko Haram has so much money to buy weapons and do that. What should government do? I wish that government will go hard after these people. I have been reading the Counter-Terrorism Act. I think it is comprehensive. But so long as you take such serious issues to the regular courts, you are not serious yet. After the war, we had armed robbery. And they set up special tribunals. You don't adjourn the terrorism case for 3 months. You grab the guy, you take him to a special tribunal and nail him. Let everybody know that there will be no adjournment until the next election. And all Nigerians should support government in this. Of course, the mistakes will be made, but that is the way the cookie crumbled. You are linked to terrorism, government goes after you, boy, with everything that it has. Because as I said, I have no doubt at all, there are people supporting Boko Haram. If the insurgency were to end today, there are people who will become irrelevant. They have nothing to talk about. And they are just happy. They want the thing to go on. Government just has to be very tough with them. That's my position. Go after them with all that it has. Cause the National Assembly to come up with a law, set up a special tribunal. If it has to do with terrorism, there is no adjournment till 3 months. No, those days armed robbers are caught, taken before the tribunal, and before you know it, they have been shot 1 hour ago. That sounds dreadful. But we cannot allow people who are so blinded by their own personal interests to continue to draw us back. And those who are looking for political advantage, and there are so many of them, and I don't want to stir up any controversy. A lot of people going around making so much noise, and you would wonder, what are these people all to? What is their motivation? Oh, government must do this, government must do that. Meanwhile, they are doing nothing except making a lot of noise. And they know, some of them have enough experience in government to know that that kind of noise, all that it does is it distracts government.
All right, Colonel Ola Majoyegbe, thank you for your perspectives. Colonel Ola is one of the best brains in security matters. We thank you for joining us from the Lagos Network Center. Back here in Abuja, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria from wherever you're watching us. We'll take a short break. We'll be having our next guest here in Abuja studio shortly.
Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Mama's cooking. Let's help her. Wait. My mama says before touching food, You should wash your hands with soap.
But my hands are
You
clean.
can't see germs, but they're everywhere.
Look under special blue light. To protect against germs, I recommend regularly use soap. Safeguard removes millions of germs, and additionally, it inhibits regrowth of germs that might cause skin rashes for hours.
That is why me, mommy, daddy, and my brother regularly use Safeguard.
Supported by the African Medical Association.
New Camay Beauty Soap. He's always in a hurry, but now no need to worry. I know my way to his heart. New Camay Soap with a perfume drop that lasts oh so long. And my skin feels so soft. I'm a Camay kind of woman, true African woman, so beautiful.
You're the queen of my heart.
I'm a Camay kind of woman, true African woman. Discover new body care collection from Camay.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria, which is coming to you live on the network service of the NTA. We are discussing the ceasefire between the government of Nigeria and Boko Haram. And we are taking our last guest now from the Abuja studios, is Barrister Mike Ejiofor, a security consultant. Barrister Ejiofor, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Okay, very briefly, what's your take on the unfolding developments between the Nigerian government and Boko Haram?
Well, it's a welcome development, save for the fact that, there had been earlier ceasefire announcements from the Boko Haram. As it is, Boko Haram is now a franchise. But the statement, a clear departure from the former announcements being made, because this is coming from government. And I believe very strongly that government must have made behind the scene moves before coming out with the statement. So it's a welcome development.
So you said there had been earlier ceasefire announcements by the Boko Haram said. Now, does this give you any doubt about the sincerity of this one?
Not necessarily. Well, the point I'm making is that earlier announcements were made by people who are not actually representing Boko Haram. But you also bear in mind that this initiative has been taken by the president of Chad, and it's a tripartite arrangement. Cameroon is involved, so there's much credibility to this very initiative.
Now, talking about credibility, Barrister Ejiofor, there have been allusions to some sort of political interest, of course, regarding the timing of this ceasefire and the part government played. There have been sayings, of course, that maybe government is trying to make a political statement or make a political point, by, coming all out at this point. You are an expert in this field. What do you read?
Well, I think the people who have such insinuations are just a complete balderdash. Permit my language, because the issue remains that the government has a lot of issues to campaign with, save for the security challenge that we are facing, which is not peculiar to Nigeria. I don't think that the timing has anything to do with this present initiative. It has nothing to do with time.
There have been other, of course, efforts. It's been an ongoing effort between government and, of course, other neighboring countries. It's a regional collaboration. This is probably one of the best results that have come out from those collaborative efforts.
Exactly. It's one of the best initiatives because, like I said, government must have vetted its sources. A lot of behind-the-scenes moves must have taken place. The sources are tested to ensure the veracity of the veracity of the sources, because if you don't have credible source, there's no point going ahead with such negotiations. And like Ayla said, the heat is on Boko Haram. The military has been re-engineered and re-equipped to face the current challenges. So I think it's time they seize the initiative, this opportunity. The Boko Haram will seize this opportunity to negotiate with government and we'll have peace.
Well, Barrister Ejiofor, ceasefire agreements can be breached. negotiations can also collapse. Ultimately, it will depend on the parties. If you were to advise, what would be your suggestions to ensure that we do not have a rollback of the steps that led us to where we are now, namely the ceasefire?
Well, you see, like some school of thought, you record, and that brings me to the issue of what you have just raised. 24 hours, barely 24 hours after the ceasefire, there was an attack. And people now begin to have doubts on the sincerity of purpose for the negotiations. But we fail to also realize that Boko Haram has different components. You have the political components, the religious components, the economic, and the criminals who are involved. So we don't expect that everybody should be carried along immediately. But the most important thing is that the credible leadership of the Boko Haram is being dealt with. So with sincerity of purpose on both parties, I think we'll achieve results and will not go back to our earlier position.
Well, I don't. The details of the negotiations have not been disclosed. Obviously, such negotiations are not carried out in the public domain. I'm sure there will be minimum demands on both sides. Amnesty has been touted on the pages of papers, especially so in the media, especially since the announcement of on Friday. If you were to make suggestions or to advise again, what will be the minimum demands?
Well, like you said, there are issues that should not come to the public domain, but Nigerians need to know what is going on. So if you ask me for positions of both parties, I'm sure, like is in public domain, the Boko Haram has been asking for prison swap of its detained members. If it is the minimum that can achieve results and get these girls released, because their lives are very important to us, well, why not? But the other issues like talking of Islamization of Nigeria, taking over part of the country, that is not negotiable.
But
And,
this issue of prisoner swap has been on the table for some time now. It's been what they've been asking for, and of course, government has said not responded positively to that. So why are we looking at that? Why is it on the table now?
Well, you see, it depends on who you are negotiating with. Earlier negotiations, like I said, is like a franchise. You are not dealing with the known leaders. In this particular case, for instance, you recall that the Cameroonian government, people were taking hostages, Chinese and the wife of the deputy prime minister, and through the facilitation of the Chadian president, those people were released. So I believe that this will also achieve results.
Well, as I said, these are not matters that we necessarily would need to discuss in the open, because there are key markers
Exactly.
that we have to keep watch of while the negotiations continue. But obviously, if you're talking about a prisoner swap, one issue again that I think that the negotiators, I believe, should bear in mind: you swap the prisoners. What happens to those members? Are they going back to the battlefield to resume war against the country?
You see, we have this process of de-radicalization. If the people, there's a prison swap, they will not just be left open to the field. There must be some, in the process of the negotiation, agreements must have been reached on what should be done with the prisoners that are being swapped. Otherwise, they become a greater danger. And we should not also forget that Boko Haram is not just a local terrorist group, but the Nigerian government is concerned. 6 months gone by, these girls are behind it. The Nigerian government is concerned to ensure the release of these girls and in good condition. So I think that's why the government is making that concession. Otherwise, it's difficult, prison swap on it. These are ideological issues that the Boko Haram is pursuing.
Okay.
Negotiations are still going on. We understand, of course, for more details to emerge. But the young girls have been held captive for over 200 days. So how much more time are we talking about before the ceasefire, this part of the bargain is effected? I mean, the release of the girls.
Well, I think the negotiation continues this week from reports. So let's keep our fingers crossed, establish patience, and pray that we achieve results, because the girls should be released and must be released.
Do you sincerely believe that this Boko Haram sect, will keep to this ceasefire and eventually release, or of course, grant us our requests, our demands? Do you sincerely believe that, from your experience? You've been a director of State's, security service.
Well, if you are dealing with the main leadership, the credible leadership, why not? We'll get results.
In this case, are we dealing with the credible leadership? Because we know that the leader, the first leader was killed, was reported to have been killed. The second one was reported to have been killed. Now we have several others who are coming up with different names. So who are we dealing with?
The Al-Qaeda, for instance, their leader was earlier killed. He didn't stop Al-Qaeda from operating. So there must be a leadership in any terrorist group or any organization. So let us pray, like I earlier said, and continue to work with government. They need the understanding of Nigerians, understanding of everybody, to ensure the early release of them. That's our concern. That's my particular concern. Because if you are not affected personally, you will not know what the parents are going through.
Well, but Barrister Mike, you've excuse me, very appropriately captured, and some of our guests did earlier as well, Boko Haram as a franchise, a political Boko Haram, criminal Boko Haram, economic Boko Haram. Boko Haram itself is also described in some quarters as a franchisee of Al-Qaeda. Now, Boko Haram, we get into negotiations with them. What should be our level of concern or weariness with the grant of franchise by Al-Qaeda to Boko Haram?
And that's what I earlier said, that it has international dimension. But let us deal with our own local problems first, our own local political problems. Let's handle that one before we go to the international dimension, which of course is unnegotiable.
Very well. That's a clear. That's
Yes.
We'll wrap it up.
Because we'd like to thank Barrister Mike Ejiofor, who is, of course, a very distinguished lawyer and former director of the State Security Service. Thank you for joining us. We'd also like to thank all our guests from the Lagos and Benin Network Centers for your perspective this morning on this topic. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Kingsley has the next story from the foreign scene.
Well, foreign scene, of course, that's where we go on to now. The U.S. led strikes against Islamic State, the lingering civil unrest in Hong Kong, and renewed clashes in Ukraine are some of the reports making the news on the international scene. Here is Nnamdi Odipo with the stories.
We have a report which confirms the visit of UN humanitarian chief Valerian Amos to refugee camp in southeast Turkey, where thousands of Syrian Kurds who fled from the besieged town of Kobani were sheltering. Reports say intense fighting between Islamic State fighters and outgunned Kurdish forces in the streets of Kobani forced more than 250,000 residents to flee to Turkey over the past weeks. Turkey is already hosting 1.3 million Syrian refugees, and officials estimate the relief efforts has cost the government in excess of $3 billion.
The local authorities, the national authorities, particularly AFAD, UN agencies and international and national NGOs have come together to work very quickly and hard to give as much support to people as possible.
In the meantime, fierce fighting have continued to rock the Syrian town of Kobani as Islamic State fighters attacked Kurdish defenders with mortars and car bombs. The British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights explained the Islamic State, which controls much of Syria and Iraq, fired 44 mortars at Kurdish parts of the town on Saturday, and some of the shells fell inside nearby Turkey. The group said 4 more mortars were fired on Sunday.
The month-long battle for Kobani has ebbed and flowed. A week ago, Kurds said the town will soon fall. The United States, with its coalition partners, then stepped up airstrikes on Islamic State, which wants to take Kobani in order to strengthen its position in northern Syria. In Hong Kong, the city's chief executive, Leon Chun-Hing, has said the pro-democracy protests affecting major parts of the city are not entirely a domestic movement. Speaking to local media during a televised interview, Leong did not qualify what he meant by this statement, but his comments reflected those of Chinese leaders in Beijing who have accused the Occupy Central movement of being a colored revolution backed by foreign powers. Violent clashes erupted in protester-occupied Mong Kong district early on Sunday, deepening a sense of impasse between the government with limited options and the pro-democracy movement increasingly willing to confront police. Police and government officials have denounced the protesters' retaking of the bustling Mong Kong district as violent and radical. And finally, local authorities in Ukrainian city of Donetsk, which has been under control of pro-Russian rebels for months, say 4 people were killed and 9 injured in shelling on Saturday. The shelling happened as eastern Ukraine lifted out a shaky ceasefire agreed between government troops and pro-Russian rebels on September 5th.
All right, thank you, Nnamdi Odipo, for that package. And that's how we round off today's edition of the program, Good Morning Nigeria. It's reached you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. My name is Claire Adelabo Abdul Razak. See you again tomorrow.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. It's also been my pleasure being with you on the program today, which came to you, as Claire said, live on the network service of the NTA. The program returns 7 o'clock tomorrow. You'll have a nice day.
Needs peace and stability, achieve our goals in unity. We are brothers and sisters, we've lived together for years now. Say no to violence now, sing it with me. Peace, peace, peace. No religion preaches violence, we need understanding.